So this particular video is going to give you some practice in looking at a particular advertisement, in this case, and using rhetoric as a lens for analysis. And what we're going to look at is the Dove Evolution commercial advertisement. And so what I would like us to do is really we're going to watch all or part of the advertisement and just pick apart some elements to it. So what are some things you could talk about? What are some things you could discuss if you were to conduct a rhetorical analysis of this? So again, we're looking at those specific elements of, okay, who is the communicator? Who is trying to get this message across to me? And what credibility do they have? What tools, what techniques are being used in order to persuade me or try to convey a certain type of message? And what is that message anyway? And who is the intended audience for this? Who do we think it is? And what does this say about other elements in terms of our culture? So let's look at this, and hopefully the whole thing will load. It looks like only part of it is loaded, but we can always kind of skip around a little bit. But let's go ahead and let's play this, and first and foremost, let's just watch, and then we can kind of jump back and forth here. But I'll go ahead and play this, and just take a minute to watch. Okay, so there was the video, and you can see it's a really popular video. It's had over 15 million views. We know who made it, so we have a sense of who this person is. This is the actual person, Tom Piper, you can see here, who uploaded this video, is the one that created it. But just to go back, just to look at some things, so what might you talk about in terms of an analysis for this? I mean, one of the things is, what did you folks notice, right? Where could we start from? Really it's maybe jotting down notes and ideas of what is it that you see and what is actually happening. We obviously have a sound stage here, we have a photo session that's going on, but what's happening is, throughout the film, putting the lights on, we have this one use of text, evolution, right? And evolution is being used in a way where, okay, is this really evolution, right? We have all these artificial things are being done to them, right? Whether it's the hair, the makeup, and then it goes even one step further. When the photo session is done, as we'll see in a second, we get this happening, right? We can see all the computer editing that goes on. Okay, and again, this is an advertisement for Dove, for this idea of self-esteem, of helping to build one's self-esteem, and how this kind of thing is in helping, right? That it creates this artificial image. That this image isn't in fact real, that these things that folks covet or want to be are in fact false, that they're not real. And so we should cherish and celebrate this idea of natural beauty, right? Without all the makeup and the hair and the photo and everything else, right? So that seems to be the underlying message, right, of the commercial. It's trying to dispel notions of the beauty myth by showing exactly how this process is done. So you have that as a message. Now, what's being done to convey that message? What tools are being used in terms of what you see here, right? We have obviously the time-lapse videography, right? Where this is all in real time, and that notion of evolution. But then all of a sudden it just picks up, right? And I mean, ask yourselves, how long do you think this entire process took? So all the hair, all the makeup, photos, doing the cropping, it took a really long time to get this person to look this way, and then again, all the editing that's happening. So this shows a length of time passing, right? By speeding up the camera. That's one technique. That's one tool that's used. You could talk about the music, right? You could talk about the voices in the background. The music, is very sped up, very fast to mimic that actual process. At the very end, you might have noticed the music kind of fades away. Where we see the person on the actual billboard fades away, kind of like our radio. You see this from a distance, right? That's another reflection of what's happening. And again, even though you're looking at advertisements, a lot of times advertisements have words as well as images. So we have evolution, and that's a very loaded term because it's sort of calling into question, well, is this really evolution? Have we really come that far if this is how we perceive things? And then no wonder our perception of beauty is distorted. So a very declarative statement that we... And then, of course, we get we put this on, take part in the Real Beauty Workshop for girls. So again, this idea of boosting girls' self-esteem, this idea of what real beauty and natural beauty is, and to celebrate those things. So you have the message, and you have those things you could talk about, whether it's the music, the camera angles, the use of the person. You take somebody that is, quote-unquote average, ordinary-looking person, and they get done up with all this stuff, the makeup, the hair, everything else. Then you see through the actual process of how somebody would Photoshop all these different elements of the person, right? You see that's one tool and one device. So these are things that you could talk about as to how this message is being conveyed to an audience. Now, who do you think is the intended audience for this, right? How do you feel as an audience member, right? Does this appall you? Is this humorous to you? Is it just kind of like, it doesn't really bother me? It's like, yeah, I already know that that's kind of the way things are. What is the response that you have, and who do you think this is intended for? Is it intended for men or women? Is it intended for younger women, older women? Is it intended for somebody else that we're not seeing? The other thing to ask is who is not present, right? We see a one particular person really throughout this, right? And it's this one individual. But there are a lot of people that aren't represented, right? Does that have some kind of significance? That's another element you could talk about. The big thing, of course, is the credibility factor, right? I mean, Tim Piper, right? We could research that person. We could see what other things they've done and what else he's directed, what he's been doing to get a sense of his credibility. But he did this for a company, right? He did this for Dove. And we think of Dove as this company that totes natural beauty and all these other kinds of things. But at the end of the day, what is it? It's a company. And what does a company try to do? Company tries to make money, right? So do you feel duped? Is that another thing that you could potentially feel with this? That, I'm being told to contribute to the self-esteem fund, and that's great. We always want people to have better self-esteem, but is this also, in a secondary capacity, make you more inclined to buy Dove's products? Right? So you're putting more money into the pockets of that particular company. I don't know, right? So that says something about the credibility. And as I mentioned, this came out in 2006. At that time, there was the parent company that owned Dove and Axe body spray. I don't know since then if those have split or there's been some other things that have happened. But if you have a company that oversees these different products, one that is trying to celebrate women and natural beauty, and one that really does exploit women, as in the case with Axe body spray, right, in those commercials, that might say something about that particular company's credibility, right, that oversees these. So these are all things that you could potentially talk about in terms of a rhetorical analysis, saying what is the message, how is that message being conveyed, to whom is that being conveyed, what credibility does this person have or this company have, what is their purpose, and what does this say about our larger cultural, social, economic place in the world. If this came out in 2006, are things better in terms of the way that we view women, in terms of notions of the beauty myth and exploitation of women? Are those things better than they were, that many years ago, 6-7 years ago? That's a question to ask, right? So these are all things that you could talk about in relation to a rhetorical analysis. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what you can talk about, where you can go. Again, you can use an advertisement, still advertisement, commercial. You can use anything that's listed on the assignment sheet too, so it doesn't have to be an ad. Ads are pretty beneficial for this, but doesn't have to be an advertisement. As always, questions, comments, concerns, feel free to contact me. I'll talk to you folks again soon. Thanks.